You know, just because you're wearing shades doesn't make you cool.
Okay, Captain Goggles. Well, just because your name's Quicksilver doesn't make you an Avenger.
Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome to 2FAST2MOVIE. I'm your host, Kenny. I'm back, and here with my co-host, Jose Quintana. I am fully healed and fully speaking, so, Jose, quite an episode we got, right?
We got one amazing episode, in my opinion, and it's just hard to believe this is what, the mid-season, essentially, episode?
Yeah, I guess it is. So would you say this is, like, your favorite episode, maybe?
I don't know, because I really did like 4, even though it wasn't too much focusing on the WandaVision, what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode had a lot of, I think, kind of like an A-B plot line, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I really like this episode, because it's kind of like a regular show storytelling point where there's multiple storylines connecting with each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so, before we dive in any further, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. We are covering WandaVision every week, so be sure to check out the next coming episodes on 2FAST2MOVIE. Our friends are also covering Attack on Titans on their segment of 2FAST2MOVIE, so be sure to check that out. And as always, spoilers ahead. So I urge you guys to watch this episode. Like, just avoid everything. Do not go near it. Actually, if you're even watching this, you're probably watching it. But if you are watching this, go. Like, go watch this episode and then come back. So this episode, we are going into the 80s. So, like, Growing Pains sitcom type thing. It's especially with the how the intro was, like, you know, the painting and then the montages and stuff like that. So yeah, what I thought after last week's episode, I thought we were just going to get just dive in all sitcom and not really much of anything else, but we surprisingly got a lot of plot and a lot of progression in the story. So in this episode, we start with Wanda and Vision with the twins, and they appear to be aging rapidly, just kind of like how I predicted a few weeks ago. So I'm like, yeah, point for me. And Vision is slowly starting to realize what's happening. So within, like, you know, the first segment before the intro hit, what were the vibes for you?
They were pretty good vibes. I really liked the intro. It was very reminiscent of 80s sitcoms, which mostly for the music for me. But with the episode in the beginning, it got me off pretty surprising, because I didn't know about Billy and Tommy aging rapidly. And then, as we see just a couple of minutes later, they do it again. Yeah, they do it again. And Agnes just seems to be fine with it.
Yeah. So I wasn't here last week, but yeah, a point I wanted to point out, like, you know, on the walls of, like, you know, the identifying the citizens in Westview, Agnes was never identified. And if you look in this episode on that board, there's still no ID of her. It's just a file of her, but there's, like, no actual ID of this person living there. So, and also with her being so nonchalant with Wanda using her powers, I think it fully speaks that she's Agatha, the witch. And yeah, so what do you think about Agnes during this episode? What do you think her play is, her part in this is?
I think her part is probably to make Wanda more either comfortable with using her powers or even just to help escalate them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. It's hard to say, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. So one of the things we talked about as the episodes progress, it's clear that Wanda is fully conscious in what she's doing. And so one of the things we discussed was that that this is all her, or is this someone else? And yeah, I think like Agnes definitely has a part in that, as she seems very encouraging when things just happen, and she's always there conveniently with a solution, and one of the things that I didn't expect, like I knew Wanda was lucid, but one of the things I didn't expect was for her to come out of Westview and confront the Sword agents. And that was more of the B plot of this episode, and I really liked that we got to see both sides instead of like having one episode dedicated to the sitcom and one episode dedicated to Sword. And so, what were your expectations in this episode in terms of Sword interacting with Wanda, and did you really see any of that coming, or like? Were your expectations met?
My expectations were, I think they were, what's the word? I guess beyond expected. Like, I wasn't expecting an encounter with Wanda this immediately, even though Monica and Darcy and Jimmy all had like a plan coming together. But by the end of their interaction, I was kind of blown away.
Yeah. Wanda leaving that bubble, or the hex. They're officially dubbing it now, which I called a few weeks ago. So yeah, we just need to keep a point counter of all of my theories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're calling it the hex, and I think this is like, yeah. So like, prior to WandaVision, we never really saw her have any like reality bending powers. It's just telekinetic and mind control. That's as far as it went. But now it seems like with Monica's clothes, or like anything that goes through the hex, it's warped. Like reality has changed. And with Monica's clothes that were Kevlar, now that they're like in 80s attire, but they're bulletproof. So she's growing stronger, and I think it's Agnes that's the one that's sort of strengthening her and giving her these powers. Would you agree?
I would agree, mostly because Agnes is being very low key about what she knows and how she's acting towards not even just Wanda, but just to everybody in Westview.
Yeah, and yeah, she gives me very rancid vibes, especially with in the beginning when like Wanda seemingly forgot her line or whatever, or but Agnes was like, hey, you want me to take it back to 1? Like, she seems to be the only one fully conscious of what's going on. Meanwhile, when Vision was slowly starting to figure it out, and he woke up
Norm?
Yeah, Norm. He woke up Norm, and he's just like, oh my god, like she's in my head. I gotta call my sister. Where's my phone? And that, I just love the panic of that scene, and just like Vision slowly losing his mind. I didn't expect any of that so soon, and props to Paul Bettany for his performance in this episode. I think he was definitely a huge standout in terms of acting prowess in this episode. What were your thoughts on Vision's journey?
I'm really liking it so far.
Yeah.
It's kind of becoming what I kind of hoped for it, because to just to briefly mention a little bit about the episode,
Mhm,
we
mhm.
see Wanda. I believe they said she took Vision's body, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And so she somehow managed to reanimate him, and Vision seems to have at least some of his memories, or at least of Wanda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to say what Wanda did to Vision, but Vision coming to realization, and for those who have seen the promo for the new episode next week, it goes just a little bit beyond that. But that's what I'm looking forward to see for next week.
Yeah, yeah, and we speculated that, like, is this like Vision's body? Is this because I wasn't here last week, but like, just that shot of corpse of Vision, yeah, was really awesome and pretty scary. So I guess it just confirms that, like, Wanda couldn't just make Vision, she needed his corpse and to reanimate him, and to see, like, our questions and thoughts slowly confirmed, and also just more questions asked, like, so like towards the end, probably like my favorite bit of the episode is towards the end when Vision is like questioning Wanda, just like like what's happening, and like you're doing this to innocent people, people that have families, and Wanda is just like, I know, but like this is for us, and Vision is just shouting at her, and just that moment when both of them are just like flying in the air and looks like they were about to throw down. I was like, holy shit, this is so intense. And like, I'm so down for whatever's going to happen. So like, and also my favorite bit is just like Vision still talking as the credits were rolling. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Vision's confrontation with Wanda?
It was definitely intense, like you said. I wasn't sure what to like think about it. It just had me a stunned for the entire time of it, with Wanda floating, Vision flying, both of them just pretty much at each other's heads and throats, like literally ready to fight, to do whatever it is to come to a conclusion or whatever.
Yeah, and then to be interrupted by something we did not see coming. Well, yeah, Pietro's back, but now being played by Evan Peters instead of Aaron Taylor Johnson. Evan Peters played Quicksilver in the Xmen series, starting from X-Men Days of Future Past and onwards. Personally, he's my favorite Quicksilver. And yeah, that's such a big reveal, and I'm still unsure what's happening. But before I delve into it, what were your thoughts on the Quicksilver reveal?
I gotta be honest, I was sort of spoiled by it before I saw the episode.
Oh man, really? When did you watch it?
I watched it like, well, I saw someone mention Evan Peters and WandaVision, and for a minute I thought, oh great, this episode had the reveal, so it's not going to be as big as a thing.
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, but yeah, so I was expecting it, of course, and I gotta make a quick subline that I love how Darcy Lewis just says they recast Pietro. I think Pietro almost acting like wait, do we know, is Pietro older than Wanda, right?
They're twins, but I think he's the older one. The older one, yeah.
Because when he met Wanda, he kind of gave off like the sitcom older brother kind of vibes, like just
visiting town.
Yeah, visiting town, exactly. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't expect. I mean, like we mentioned before, there were rumors. There were rumors that Evan Peters was back, and I took everything with a grain of salt. I never really buy into those until like I actually see it. And like the moment when the door rang or whoever knocked, I was like, okay, it's probably Agnes, and then they open it and then they act like it's a big reveal. I'm like, oh shit, it's Pietro, isn't it? And then like seeing the back of his head, I'm like, wait a second, no. And it was Evan Peters, and I'm like, holy shit, like it was a pleasant surprise. And I really don't know what that means. I don't know if it means like I think like Wanda's most definitely not responsible for that. I think that's on Agnes's part or whoever is actually in charge. Still, I'm still thinking it's Mephisto. Yeah, with him being recasted, I'm not sure if I'm hoping this is like the sort of bridge to Fox's X-Men universe, right? I mean like because of Thanos' snap and being snapped again by the Hulk, there are going to be some cosmic ramifications throughout the MCU, and one of those things could be like the birth of mutants. And with Evan Peters now as Quicksilver, I'm not sure if Quicksilver is going to be alive now or this is just within this reality. And it was actually just some guy in Westview, and and Agnes like, let's make him Quicksilver or something, But what are your thoughts on the show in the especially with Quicksilver? What are your thoughts on the greater scheme of the MCU?
Ooh, it leaves way too many interests possible that I can't even name them all. But with
what do you want to see?
Yeah, I definitely want to see hopefully more X-Men, because if Pietro, because in the previous MCU iteration of Pietro, he got his powers from the Infinity Stones, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
The soul, the mind or soul stone, one of them. Yeah.
So if this Pietro is a mutant, then it kind of leaves up to the idea of mutants being in the MCU, which is what I'm really looking forward to see, because X-Men is one of my favorite groups of Marvel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So definitely want to see what they come up with, because Marvel has like some kind of great plan with WandaVision, because it still leaves us with questions with each episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of my notes that I sent Alex last week about the show so far. This is basically Once Upon a Time, and the plot of Once Upon a Time is a witch wants her happily ever after, so she creates a town, and like pulls these people from her kingdom into this town and makes them think that they're living a different life for her own happiness. This is Westview is basically Storybrooke. It's I often joke with my sister, but I'm really liking how it's going so far, and yeah, definitely big House of M vibes in terms of the comics, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where WandaVision stands in a grander scheme of things, because especially now with Quicksilver and seeing that her reality bending powers are permanent, I think that like Infinity War, WandaVision is going to have a big impact within the MCU. Would you agree with that?
Definitely agree that Wanda is like showcasing like the fact that she really is one of the most powerful Avengers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they mentioned that again with the agents, that Wanda could have definitely killed Thanos if he didn't interrupt her. But and also I love Jimmy, that FBI agent. He's the best.
Yeah.
I love seeing Randall Park, and he he's always a pleasant surprise. So I guess, like, in conclusion, I guess this is an obvious yay from both of us. So were there things that you didn't like in this episode before we wrap up?
Not necessarily that I didn't like, but just what kind of leaves me with confusion is just how Billy and Tommy act. Not necessarily they're actors, but like, it's hard to describe. But basically, it's just like, I guess it's just trying to get used to them, really.
Yeah, getting used. Yeah, we still don't know, what Billy and Tommy's roles are in the grander scheme of things. They're, like I mentioned before, and Vision mentioned this episode, there are no other children in this town. Just Billy and Tommy. And they kept going on and on about for the children, when there are no children. So I'm thinking this whole hex thing is, for Billy and Tommy, I guess. So I guess, like, one theory I want to bring up before we wrap up, just real quick. Dottie, she hasn't been identified either on the wall, right?
Right. She hasn't been identified. I don't know if her picture was even up there, but she definitely wasn't mentioned in the brief identifications.
Yeah, so she wasn't mentioned. So I'm thinking either Dottie is Mephisto or Agnes's husband, Ralph, because she keeps mentioning Ralph and we don't see Ralph. So, and she mentions Ralph every time that she's on screen, so I'm assuming that Ralph will be important at some point. Either it's a bad running joke or Ralph is actually important. And with how this show is going so far, I think we should definitely keep an eye on Ralph, So, because, the show is definitely telling us to pay attention because, it's like a magic trick. And they mentioned in episode 2, like, we will show you things and you will believe it because humans, are easily fooled, as
right.
Vision says. So, but yeah, in conclusion, I love this episode, probably my favorite. And yeah, I'm loving the pace. I'm loving the show more than I thought I would. I mean, I'm not saying that I had super low expectations, but like I was, I thought it would be just a paint by numbers, stuck in a reality type thing. But with the reveals and the stories that they're presenting us and the possibilities of the future of the MCU, I think this is fascinating, and I'm super, super excited to see what comes out of this show. So the MCU keeps on giving, and I'm loving every bit of it. So any other closing thoughts, Jose, that you want to touch on?
Just mostly that I agree. I wasn't really looking forward to WandaVision at first. Actually, most of the early MCU shows that they stated was kind of just a regular, like, okay for me, which I know I was gonna watch them anyway. But WandaVision is blowing my mind with my expectations right now.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, same here. So yeah, we'll come back next week, hopefully in the 90s. I haven't seen any of the promos. I avoid those. Jose is the one that watches the promos, but I don't. So I have no idea what's planned for next week. I know this is probably going to be another decade of sitcoms. So we're probably going Full House next week, whether Vision likes it or not. So yeah, thank you as always for tuning in. You can find us on most places you find podcasts, like Spotify and Amazon Music. Our friends are still covering the MCU movies on the Return of the Movie podcast, so please be sure to check that out. I think they're coming up with Age of Ultron very soon, so be sure to check that out when that uploads. So yeah, as always, thank you for listening, and as always, it's 2FAST2MOVIE.